I think it's so important to remember all the lives that were lost, not just my child. This was a whole community that was wiped out. They had moms and dads, aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters. People don't want to be reminded all the time about all the deaths. But I think at the same time, when you deny something, it makes it so it doesn't exist, and it did exist.
Hemophilia is a rare blood disorder
where the blood doesn't clot as fast as it should normally.
Hemophilia affects mostly men.
We were all told that we were going to die by the time we were 13.
Hemophilia represents one of two clotting factors that are missing from the blood.
So when I'm cut, it takes longer to stop. But the worst manifestations tend to be internal bleeding.
Ankles, hip hemorrhages, elbow hemorrhages, knees.
The blood is a terrible irritant to the joint and eats away at the cartilage.
I don't think people can realize how bad that pain is.
When I was born in 1960, there was no treatment for hemophilia. We were treated with whole blood or fresh plasma.
Patients often spent most of their lives in the emergency room getting transfused.
Up until the 1970s, there really was no effective treatment for hemophilia. And when Factor was developed and came on the market, it changed the way people with hemophilia were able to treat their disease.
The ability to use Factor gave people with hemophilia freedom. They learned to give it to themselves, or their parents gave it to them. This gave our lives a tremendous amount of independence.
Live, travel, work, play, have a social life like others.
This was the medication that was supposed to change everybody's lives and save lives and make life normal for people, and it turned out that that's what was going to be killing them.
Clotting factor is manufactured from the donations of up to 20,000 individuals.
If you have one bad apple in there, it contaminated the whole lot.
Every time you injected Factor VIII into you meant a huge exposure to the viruses that were in there, and that was hepatitis and ultimately AIDS.
By the early 1980s, most of the lots of plasma-derived clotting factor that were produced were contaminated. Most of the community was infected.
The pharmaceutical companies at that point in time, they did very little to protect this community, and I think that that's really a shame.
The manufacturer's memo basically said, we understand it's infected, we're going to sell it anyway, because if we don't sell it, we'll lose 60% of our profit, and they would just take the risks. Unfortunately, that risk was mine, and I was infected.
The hemophilia population heard that one or two of us had gotten AIDS. I don't think anybody was ready for the magnitude of the disaster that was coming.
It really threw us in a tailspin.
People were very afraid about the transmission of it. There was so much misinformation that for a lot of us, it wasn't bad enough just to have hemophilia and the stigma that sometimes goes along with that. But now you were kind of targeted as somebody who was bringing some dread disease.
I seen it very early on how people treated Ryan, like he's had to have done something bad or wrong or he wouldn't have got this disease. This is God's punishment on people who do bad things. And there's some funny things going on in that household. That's how he really got AIDS. And we can't let Ryan White in school or every gay person in the country is going to come to our town.
My original home church was a very staunch African-American Baptist church. And I went to the pastor and told him what was going on. And literally he told me not to come back.
It's almost like a mob mentality. Our home was set on fire.
We had death threats when both of my brothers were in the hospital dying. You know, I didn't understand why people would want to kill us. We're kids, you know.
The only people I told were my mom and dad. And I specifically asked them not to tell my brother or anybody else.
The hemophilia community decided to be silent.
It was a failure all the way around. There were no winners in this for hemophilia. The government failed us. CDC tried. FDA failed us. The administration failed us, and we failed ourselves.
And it took a long time for the anger to grow up in the community and really fight back.
I'm not sure if it had been the adults standing up, if America would have even listened.
2 young boys with hemophilia, Ricky Ray and Ryan White, became the galvanizing symbol for the hemophilia community around the issue of AIDS in the 80s and 90s.
Ryan White was a boy from Indiana who very much so decided that he would not be prevented from going to school.
Ricky Ray was a young boy who lived in Florida. He had AIDS and he was discriminated against in school. He also had 2 brothers.
All 3 of our sons were diagnosed with HIV within 2 months of each other.
I think Ricky handled it the best out of all of us. He said that he was put here for a reason, and he took it upon that would be his reason, was to educate about AIDS.
Adults sometimes are so afraid to say what they think, or afraid of what society's going to think, that they don't do the right thing. Kids are amazing. They don't have that fear.
Right.
And so they're able to do what's right and to say what's right, whether somebody likes it or not.
Ryan made a difference, I think, because of his honesty and that smile. He had a smile that made people listen.
It became folklore as the stars began to embrace him. It gave us all so much hope.
They were the voice for many of our community who were afraid to come out of the shadows. They were the voice that said, we need change.
I think that that inspired courage in a lot of people. Sometimes you just need to have a spark.
As I think back about what happened and how we got to where we are today with hemophilia and the federal advocacy to support the passage of the Ryan White Act, the Ricky Ray Relief Program, we are the proverbial canary in the mine shaft.
I believe that the hemophilia community made our blood supply safer for everyone else. And we paid dearly with our community in percentages.
What we called it afterwards a Holocaust. We lost 8,000 from 1980 to today to AIDS.
Why am I one of the lucky ones out of the 10,000?
We were fighting AIDS and hemophilia, but we wouldn't come together. I love seeing that joined now. I think we need to be one and be able to communicate with people the sadness and the sorrow, but also the joy that maybe nobody has to live with this again.